Welcome back to the Just As I Am podcast. As usual, it's your host, Nicole. And last week we talked about something deep. We talked about anxiety and a little bit of depression. Today we're going to keep on going on that topic, but we're going to be talking about adulthood. So last week we got into some facts and feelings about anxiety and depression. Man, this is getting real deep, isn't it? Real personal. This week, I don't really know what to name this, but I'm going to figure out a name when I'm done recording it. We're going to be talking about just changes and how life is and being an adult and all the stuff that comes with it. So I hope you stick with me. I don't have any kind of script or outline for this, so it might be a huge rabbit hole. We're going to see how good we can stay on topic here, but this kind of was my decision on this episode a couple of days ago because I was having a conversation with a friend, and she's a few years younger than me, but she's kind of experiencing all of the fresh things of adulthood, I guess. I'll be 28 in August, and she's just freshly in her 20s. And we were just talking about all kinds of things and venting and sharing our feelings and our thoughts and just all the things, kind of being a support for each other. And so we were talking, and the beginning of my 20s was incredibly terrible. 20 was one of the worst years. Probably that and 13, I think. Those are the two most terrible years I've had so far. Fingers crossed, those will be the only two terrible years. But when you hit that, even when you get into life, always changes. Nothing stays completely the same for someone's entire life. That's just how it is. Here on this earth anyway. And I just want to go into talking about that. Is this going to be a vent session? I don't know, but I want to know your thoughts and feelings on this. So keep listening and we're going to talk about it together. But, when you're a kid, life is so just, loosey-goosey and fun. Hopefully you had no worries in the world. And then you start becoming, a preteen, and then you become a teenager, and then you become an adult. But then, even though you're an adult for the rest of your life, there's so many new milestones within adulthood, which is crazy. You'd think you'd hit it and then you just flatline and then you just keep going for the rest of your life. But I will say I'm taking a class in human growth and development this semester, and for some of the assignments it's required a few actual interviews with people, and so I've had to interview a child, an adolescent, and an adult. And I really liked that. That was really fun. I recommend you going and interviewing somebody. Maybe I'll share the interview with you and you can go do it. But the first one I did was the child, and she is a spunky little thing. And I was like, I want her to do the interview. And I was going to get her to do it at church that afternoon, that night, but I completely forgot. And so I FaceTimed her mom that night, and I was like, hey, can I borrow your daughter? And she was like, yeah, sure. And she said, I did just give her a melatonin, so we'll see how that affects her answers. But she was great. Oh my goodness. She had some of the sweetest answers. And honestly, I was expecting different kinds of answers from her, but I'm not unhappy with the answers I got from her. Um, she's a really pretty easygoing kid. And so, questions like, do you ever fight with your friends? Do you ever, feel sad? Do you ever, um, just all kinds of stuff. And do you ever fight with your sibling? What would you pick for dinner if you could choose what was for dinner? Just all kinds of things like that. The last one even was, what is one thing you would change about the world? But backtracking before that, a lot of the things were, no, I get along with everybody and we don't usually fight, and I was like, I love this, but yet I feel like not all of this should be, we don't fight, or no, this doesn't happen, or da 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 da. One of the things was, if she could be principal for a day or something, it was, what is one thing you would change about the school to make it better, or something like that. And I loved her answer. Teachers, you'll love it too. She said that she would make it where teachers could have more free time or more break time. Bless you, my child. I love that answer. And then when it came to, when it came to one thing she would change in the world, I know she had her melatonin and she was kind of going to sleep, but she was like, I don't think I would change anything. And as an adult, you're thinking about 47 million things that you would change. Well, then I moved on and I interviewed I call him my little boy cousin. He's not a little boy. He's 17 years old. But I called him, I think after work one day. And I was like, hey, do you have a few minutes? And he was like, yeah. And I asked him not all of the same questions, but some of the same questions. Questions better suited for a teenager or an adolescent, as I just said. And they were, questions about, guys, and I did not read over this interview before I called him to ask him to do it. So I'm sorry, Robert, but it is what it is. It's all in the past now. But a lot of the questions consisted of, puberty and, oh goodness, puberty, friendships, just self-awareness. I don't know, self-confidence and all that stuff. And so, Robert, I love him. Robert could care less about a lot of stuff. And I was like, have you ever felt, oh, y'all, my mind has gone blank. Have you ever felt, what was it? Goodness, it'll come to me at the end of this. Anyways, have you ever felt self-conscious? My goodness gracious, I knew it was going to come to me. Have you ever felt self-conscious? And he was like, no. And I was like, ever? And he said, no, I've never. And for a lot of questions like that, it was no. And I told him, I said, it was like, no, I don't care. And I told him, I said, Robert, I wish we could all be more like you and just not care about anything. Just be happy with how we are and not worry about what anybody else says. And let's see, further down the road, it was stuff like, how old do you think, a boy should be before he starts dating? How old do you think a girl should be before she starts dating? What are qualities in, a significant other do you think one should have? And then it went on to, this one's just a funny for y'all, but it went on to the question was essentially, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, an astronaut. I said, really? And he said, no. And I said, Robert, this is for a grade. I need a good answer. And he said, a chiropractor. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And so if you need a chiropractor in the future, hit up Robert. He'll handle you. And then you get to the adult and it's like the questions are just super intense. Like, let's see. It goes from, how old are you? Are you married? Simple things like that. What is a moment that you'll never forget? Or just some kind of, some kind of just peak in your life, I guess. And then it went to questions like, what is one of the worst things that has happened in your life? How did you handle with that situation? How did you cope? And just things like that. And would we ask a child that? No. Probably because their answers would be, Jenny stole my Barbie, or John stole my Legos, something like that usually. Or he pushed me on the playground. But then we got to the adult interview and it was just like, man. And then it was like, how do you rate your life? How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Or how comfortable are you with your physical self, like in your health and all that? How, on a scale of 1 to 10? Just some intense stuff. And, I love being an adult most of the time. I find a lot of great things that come with adulthood, like being able to do mostly what you want. Of course, you still have to follow rules and all that stuff, but not, as many as a child. I guess you have more freedom and the ability to do as you please, usually. When you look back and elementary was probably some of the happiest years of my life. Now, if you ask my mother that, she'll probably say that she hated the school I was at, but you know what? I was a kid. I didn't know any better. My favorite was intermediate school, but now they've split up intermediate school to put 5th grade with elementary and 6th grade with middle school, and I'm like, man, y'all should have kept that. That would have made a world of difference probably in these kids, but you know what? You do you. Those are the happiest years of my life because you weren't with the little kids and you weren't with the big kids. You were just big kids yourself. And then you get to middle school. Hated middle school. Would not go back to middle school if you paid me, probably. Luckily, I only had to do 2 years of middle school instead of 3 like some of these kids. But another side note, and this all intertwines with it, another thing that I had to do for this class was do, teacher service or something. I had to volunteer time with middle school children from one of the local middle schools. And I liked it. It was fun. To me, it was like VBS without the Bible part. So they would come to my school's campus and we would divide them up into 2 teams, 2 groups, and we would take them to certain activities over the campus, and then we would all come back and do whatever. But at one point, the person who was in charge of them wanted to interview all of us college kids and ask us whatever, and his question was, what would you tell your middle school self? And of course, we all got so deep. Nobody asked for it, but we sure did. We were all in our feelings, being completely serious. And some of us had some of the same answers. Some of us had the same answer, but we might have elaborated or added to it or, taken away, whatever. And I said my answer was kind of the same thing that I said on the last podcast about just be yourself. Don't worry about other people and, all that stuff. And that was great. Sure. And so then you get to high school. High school was not the worst 4 years of my life. Probably freshman year was not my favorite, but I think sophomore was okay. And then junior and senior were pretty good. I liked those years. But I always tell kids, I'm like, when you come into yourself, things are better. Like because you still haven't discovered yourself even in high school. Like you might feel better about yourself, but you haven't discovered yourself. You're still under an influence, even if you don't like mentally do it, but you still take note of things in your surroundings and all that. And, one of the things about high school is, you make all these friends and then you graduate and you may not see 90% of these people ever again. I graduated in a class of like 265, 75 kids, and I haven't seen a lot of them in years. And I've graduated 10 years ago this year. And then some of them I see occasionally, the ones that I actually talk to and all that. And then some of them people were like, we're graduated together. And I'm like, huh? Did not recognize that person. Did not know. But you graduate, and then this was one of the topics that we had in our conversation the other night, and it was, when you graduate, you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life. I mean, some people do, and they do that, and then they're great, and they're happy for the rest of their days, and some do not, and that is completely okay. And I don't think that people push that. I think they push that you need to know what you're going to do even before you graduate high school. You need to start planning. You need to da-da-da-da-da. In the conversation I kind of wish that was had was, yeah, you're not going to know what you want to do, some of you, but that's okay. Like, why don't you do this until you figure out this? I think that would be so much better for so many people, because the thing is, when you graduate high school, when you turn 18, sometimes your parents will send you out on your own. They won't let you live at the house anymore. So you have to fend for yourself. You have to survive and all that stuff. And then some people do get to live at home. Thank goodness for those parents or guardians or whoever. But it's so tough. Just that step. You graduate high school. Now what? What are you going to do? And you got to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. You got to figure out how you're going to afford to live, because things keep getting expensive. You got to, get insurance. You got to do, all these things once you become a certain age. And you start to understand things better, but you're seeing a lot of things that you didn't see before, right? You're seeing all kinds of things happening in the world that you were either shielded from or you just never paid attention to. And now that they affect you directly, now you have to figure it out. And you see it. And, you have to modify to that. And, kids or teenagers, whatever, when they ask me, since becoming an adult, I'll say that my typical response to things is, I can see and understand how you feel and what you're seeing, but as an adult, this is how I see the situation and understand it and know why it happened or how it needs to go from here. And I work with kids all the time, and sometimes they'll ask you all kinds of questions, and you're just like, Sometimes, because you still want to shield them and protect them, you don't want to just blab out the answer. And so sometimes you either have to sugarcoat it, you have to not really give it all to them, but give them enough, or sometimes you just even have to divert and tell them to ask another adult. One of the ladies at my job, she went on maternity leave, and the kids were like, well, how are they going to get her baby out of her? And you're like, that's a question for your mom. I tell you, but I don't need to. So just all kinds of things. I mean, I'm making this a super long episode, so I'm not going to try to stay here too much longer, but maybe a part 2. I don't know. I feel like I've gone down the rabbit hole that I told you about. But adulting is so hard because you have to deal with your own emotions. You have to deal with other adults who may not adult like you. And then you have to be either the bigger person or just, I don't want to say stay away, but you have to figure out how to enact and work with those humans. Like, there are always going to be people in this world that are working against you. And no matter what you do, they're going to do something because of that. And, you know, like, I call myself the queen of being petty, which shouldn't be a title that I proudly gave to myself. But I'm one of those where if you do something, don't think that I'm just going to let it slide. And so, you know, like, adults have those silent wars. Like, we might not come face to face and hash it out, but like, if somebody does something, you know, aimed at you, you know, quietly in the dark, whatever, and then you return that the same way, you know, just, oh my goodness. So many joys come with adulthood, and there's so many that don't. I want to hear your thoughts, your feelings, all that jazz. And over the past couple of weeks, I'm going to share a passage with you that I have heard a few times. And I'm just going to share it with you. I know you probably know it. You've heard it before. And it is Psalm 23. And I'm in the CSB version, so don't think I'm going crazy. I know it's a little different than the regular, but the Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for as long as I live. I have heard that a few times over the past couple of weeks, and I don't know why, other than I'm sure God has a reason for it. I guess it's something I've needed to hear, or I've needed to share. I know this passage, but when I hear it, I think of, I kind of picture it in my head, you know, the darkest valley and a staff in my hand or something like that. But I think of Toby Mac's song when he, you know, sings at least the first bit of that. Or, well, he doesn't really sing it, he kind of says it. But just no matter where you are in adulthood isn't easy, I feel like. Maybe, probably not even when you're retired, honestly. But no matter where you are, things level out, things get better. If you're in high school, I promise you it is not the worst time of your life. Enjoy it every day. And if you don't know what you're going to do for school, that's fine. Take your time. If you don't know, you know, how to react to this, if you don't know how to accept something that's going on in the world, just, I don't know what this message is. I'm just blabbing. But maybe you got something from this, and that is awesome. And thank you for listening this long. I hope that you just always look to the Lord for everything and pray for the best. And I will be praying for you and hoping that things in your life take a direction that you are happy with and you can live through. And no matter what, God's got you. If you need that reminder, read Psalm 23. And I love y'all, and I'll catch you on the next episode.